Hi Sarah, how are you doing? It's Professor Sasso, and I have some feedback about your story. Hopefully, you'll find this somewhat helpful as you write your final writing portfolio. And please let me know if you have any questions about how to set that up or how I can help you out. Um, I thought both of your stories, they were so different, and they both have really great things happening in them. The first story, The Tire, I think is some of the best description I've heard from the class in that first page of the story. You have these two girls, and their whole destination is to check out wild horses. Like, that is in the first paragraph of the story, and I think that's really a great setup. Like, two young women they're gonna go see the wild horses. I think is really pretty. And then you have this like just really great description of the moon lurking slightly over the landscape. It hung low and flaunted its bright, eerie orange sliver of light, like fire shining through the crack in the midst of an old door. Um, the laughter, I think you just have really nice description at the beginning of this story. And I also think the moment when the tire blows out makes it interesting as well. And you keep saying, do you have a spear? But I think you mean a spare. So just fix that language. And again, there's this moment of nice description. We get a sense of the characters. And then the story kind of ends where I'm not expecting it to end, which is, and I know I told you just to have rising tension, have something happen, and then have the story resolve itself in some way, which the tire, and then the resolution of that is that they fix the tire. I just wonder, I think these characters are more interesting than that, and I think that they're on this journey to see the wild horses, and I wonder if, I've been telling people a lot that some of the best stories are interpersonal, meaning that they, maybe something physically big doesn't happen in them, but that there's something interesting that happens to the people, that their relationship changes in some way because of the literal and figurative journey that they're on. So I almost think, could we make this a story about two best friends going to see the wild horses? And yeah, the tire breaks or busts or whatever, but maybe there's some conflict between the two of them that they have to resolve on this trip. Something they're not talking about, something that this trip is going to make them resolve. I think that would be a more interesting take on these two young women going to see wild horses. I think you have really nice mechanics in this. I think that you have really good description, but I wonder if we could complicate these characters a little bit and complicate their journey, if that makes sense. I would like to see you do something with this first story where these two young women have something that they need to resolve, and we get to the wild horses at one point, and maybe that's the moment of resolve. They say something to each other to clear up the tension between them. So it's a suggestion. I think that this could be a more complicated story, and I think you have a really good start, and I would love to see it develop a little farther. The second story, wow, there's a lot going on in the second story, and you did absolutely play up the interpersonal moment that I was talking about in the first one. I just think so much is happening that maybe we need to slow it down a little and help ground your reader in this huge thing that's happening to your characters. So I have some suggestions about that. The biggest one is this story, I think the way it was formatted, and it might just been how it was submitted, the double spaced and the indenting the paragraphs, right, wherever you break for paragraph, indenting those helps a lot, helps the reader sort of come up for air. Right now, the format I have it in, the whole story is written sort of in one long paragraph. So just make sure you're double spacing it and you're indenting that paragraph line so that we have a break in the action a little. I love the way it starts. She's packing this Valentine's package for another couple, and she's reflecting on the man that she won't be with. I think that's a really cool way to set up the irony of the story, right? And then I thought maybe even just in the beginning, if we can get a little better sense of the woman speaking, like what does she look like? What does her apartment look like as she's packing this up? Just some small details that can ground us in both the character and in the setting before the knock happens on the door. There's a few mechanical errors too, so just be careful of those. It seems like anytime you say I've, she's, any of those contractions, You're not putting the apostrophe in, so I apostrophe LL or I apostrophe VE. So just make sure you're going back and cleaning up those apostrophes. I saw that happen a lot in the story. So just a quick technical thing. And just a few spelling things. The word psyche, the word perching. I think those are the biggest ones I saw. So just do a quick cleanup for mechanics. So we have the knock on the door, and I think what's happening with your character is that we're hearing her thoughts a little bit too much. We know exactly what she's thinking at all times in the story. So she says she's confused, she's bewildered, she's hoping that it's not someone that's sleeping with Jordan. Sometimes you have to let your reader connect some of the dots on their own. Like, just let the action play out and we can get a sense of how the characters are feeling right now. So rather than giving us a lot of her thoughts, maybe just have the knock on the door and have her open it and have her act in a way that shows her fear or bewilderment. The second she opens the door too, we don't get a description of the woman, which is really funny, down at about halfway through the page. The description of her is hilarious. But I want a quick moment. She sees Ida out there, and we have no idea what Ida looks like or how she's standing or, anything about her. So in that exact moment, maybe just a quick description of this woman that's standing on her porch. And then I do like the dialogue that happens between the two of them. And like I said, I would leave it to almost strictly dialogue, where we're just hearing the conversation between these two women rather than a whole lot of the thoughts of the main character. Just let them talk, because I think that's going to reveal the story. And then I think it gets a little bit confusing when the couple comes in and they know Ida. And I'm not sure that the story needs that complication. I think the fact that a woman is showing up at her doorstep and telling her that, number one, she's married, and number two, she's sleeping with her boyfriend, I think that's enough complications interpersonally. So I might take that couple out of it. I think you can leave them in that she's preparing the Valentine's Day gift for them, but I don't think they need to walk into the scene, just because I think there's too much going on and there's too many people to keep track of. So I might just keep it between Ida and Jordan and your main character. And I think him walking into the moment is more important than anyone else. And I might have him actually enter and exit rather than just being on the phone. Maybe he does come over once the women realizes that the women are gathered together and he has to answer to them. And I would have him have to answer to the two women right there. I think that's your moment of highest conflict. And then what the characters choose to do after that is up to them. But I think the two characters meeting, him walking in, them having some type of climactic point, and then him leaving and her following him, or her deciding that, she's not going to continue this relationship anymore. I'm trying to think of what happens at the end. That she's going to move on, and maybe she walks into the parking lot and says goodbye to him, and that's where we end. And Ida can figure out her own life, and maybe she sees Ida drive away or something. So I would keep the conflict just between the three characters. I would definitely clean up the mechanics and the formatting. And I think it's a complicated enough interpersonal relationship that I would just have the two women talking in the apartment and then him enter and see kind of what happens to your characters in that moment. So I hope that was somewhat helpful to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to pick up the phone or give me a call. And I think that you've done some really nice writing in this class, some really interesting things. And I'm really excited to see, I really am, to see your portfolio. So let me know how else I can help. And I will see all of your work on Sunday. Okay, thanks, Sarah.